Alright guys, welcome to my video on how to make an intro and outro for your custom stories or mods. And this is one that was actually requested, but I thought of, I was not sure exactly how I was going to do this, but I managed to think of some way that I got actually very pleased with the results. So I'm going to show you first, before we start the tutorial, how it looks, and then you can see if this is good or what, and then you can look at the tutorial that will come after, so that you can see how you can do it yourself. So I guess I could just start up Amnesia, and I have it on development environment, so therefore it'll start up pretty quickly. I also have it set to this full conversion mod. So anyways, as soon as I click start on this one, you should be able to see how it looks, and here we go. And this is just the title I put, the logo for the story. And then we appear in the game, in this room. And it's just a very small room that I made for this example. And that was the intro. Of course, the intro is totally up to you how you want it. I just made something that I think looks pretty sweet, and it's a very simple, basic one. The music in the background also fades very much down after the intro, which you can do if you'd like, or change it completely, or, well, all these choices are of course up to you, however you want them. Anyways, let's move over to the outro. So when you want your custom story to end, you can put the code like what I am going to show you later. And for this example, I'm going to do so that if you go through this door, it's not going to execute the credits, but if you go through this door, it's going to. So basically, I'm just doing this because maybe you have several doors or exits in your level, and you only want it to end if you go through the correct one instead of everyone. Well, basically, it's just the interaction. When you interact with this door, you're gonna end the game. When you interact with this door, as you can see over here, it just transports you. Basically, just transports you right there. And yeah, so that's what that door does, just to show that you can have multiple of these doors without ending the game. But if you go through this door, it's actually going to end the game. And the music fades back in. You can put the credits in here. And yeah, I mean, music is totally your choice. And then you can just have your whatever credits you have right here. And that's it for the ending. And yeah, if you click, you will be able to skip the credits, and it will display the end. Once you click, you'll be transported back to the main menu of the game. And here we are. And this is just our conversion mod that I am working on, so let's just stop that. And yeah, that's pretty much it, how it looks. And if you're interested to know how this works, then you can follow along on this tutorial, and I will show you exactly how it is done. Now, a few words first though. If you are on a Windows computer, you can still use this tutorial because it's done the exact same way. And also, right now I have my custom story folder open, which is in Amnesia custom stories, and this is a story for everything. You probably already have this folder, but if you are missing any of these files that I have right here that are essential for it, then you can download them in my description to make things a little easier. Also in the description, I'm going to provide a link for all the script that I'm going to do in this video, so you can copy it from there. Although I really recommend that you do it yourself, because if you just copy paste it, you won't really know what's going on. It's a lot better if you understand how it works. So basically, if you just copy paste it, it'll work. Perhaps if you do it correctly, but you won't know how it works, and therefore it'll be a lot harder to edit and make it your own, like your personal things, and make it different from mine. So it's a lot better if you actually follow along and try to understand what I'm going to explain in the scripting, because it's going to be slightly advanced. I'm going to use a lot of if statements, so hopefully you can follow along with that, but I'm going to try to explain how it works if you're not too familiar with them. Yeah, you can, but of course you can download the script if you are having troubles, but I really recommend you follow along anyways. So, first of all, I'm going to say which files we are going to use. We're going to use the extra english.lang, because this is where we put the text for the actual ending. And we're also going to have the logos, or whatever. I chose to have logos. We're going to have those PNG files, intro. Right here I have 3 of them. I also have mat files, materials. So I'm just going to select these files and delete them, because we're going to make them as well. We're also going to use the material editor and the level editor. So just to, so you're aware of that. And this is how the file looks. It's a cubic resolution. And if you don't know what a cubic resolution is, basically when you make a file that you want to use in the game, the file resolution is really recommended to be something that could be divided by 8, for example. 8, 4, and 2, and whatnot, 1. So what I mean by that, it's the resolution. You might be familiar with this. The resolution being, for example, 8 by 8 pixels, 16 by 16, 32, 32, 64, 64. And if the resolution is, for example, 50 by 50 pixels, and not 64 by 64, even if you don't use the whole file, you should still have it that resolution, because right now this file has a lot of empty space around it. It's transparent, by the way. It has a lot of empty space, but that's just because of the resolution. If it's not cubic resolution, it'll take a lot more RAM to run, because, well, that's just how it works. It'll have to process a lot more just to run the file, or so I've heard. So you should really keep it that resolution. And this resolution itself, I believe, is 1024 by 1024. And I mean, that's a pretty good resolution, I think. It looks pretty sweet. I made this in Photoshop, so you can just make your own PNG file. I have 3 PNG, well, intro1.png, intro2, intro3. So I have these 3 PNG files. They are 1024 by 1024 resolution, and we're gonna make them display in the level. So first of all, we're gonna have to make the material for them, so that you can actually display them in the level. So actually, let me close the editor, and yeah, go to your editors wherever you have them and find the material editor. Make sure it's the material editor. Open that up. It should look like this. And what you want to do now, you go on, you go under texture units, click off the box, check off the box diffuse. And this will open just a small, this is basically making a new file. Diffuse, it opens up these options for a file, because if you go on file and open, you can only open already made materials.mats. So to open a PNG, you have to make a new mat, and this is how you do it. You click on the file browser right here, and this is where you can select your PNG file. So just locate it. Mine is in custom story /textures/intro, and let me do that. And basically these are the files that I have. They look kind of strange, but this is how they look. For whatever reason, it's saying the resolution is 1024 by 512, which I had originally, but it's 1024 by 1024 because that works better. You can have it 1024 by 512, but I recommend having it the same height and width. Anyways, just select whatever PNG file you want to start with. You got to do this with all of them, but it's pretty much the same. So I'm going to do it the first one. Click OK. And first of all, it's not going to show up exactly. This is a preview of how it's going to look. It doesn't really show up exactly. And what you want to do, you go on, let's see, you can go on physics material and select whatever material is going to be. It's not really important for this file because you're not going to really step on it or anything. But I like to just choose silent, so it's something at least. I guess you could just keep it default though, it probably doesn't matter. But go on the type. It's not going to be decal, it's not going to be any of these except for it. Well, it's going to be the translucent, so be sure to select the translucent or else it will not be transparent. And as you can see now, it appears here and it is now transparent. If you want a better preview of how it's actually going to look, you can go on model and select another primitive, for example plane, and then it will look more like this. Now one more thing that you want to do, you go on blend mode and you put blend mode to alpha, and basically as you can see it removed those little lines around there. Basically alpha is for semi-transparent textures, so if it's on add, it's that little fading I have around the edges, it's gonna appear as solid color, but if you have it on alpha it's going to be actually semi-transparent. So this is how you actually want the file to be. Rotate it, whatever. So this is basically how the file is going to end up looking like. And once you have done all of these settings, translucent, alpha, selected the file, you go on file, save as, and just save it whatever. I'm gonna go back to custom stories, textures, intro, so it's the same folder. I'm gonna name it intro 1, save file, and as you can see over here, popped up right there, intro1.mat. And basically this file just says what all the parameters that, or the everything that defines this PNG file. So now we have done intro 1, and we're just going to do the same exact thing with the other two, and it's really simple what you need to do. Just click on the browser again, select number 2, and all the settings are already the same. Save file as intro2.mat. Save, open the third one. This is of course depending on how many you want or or what your intro wants to be, but now you have some transparent texture that can appear in the game as a plane, and this is what we're going to use to display the intro. So once you have saved all of these three, you can just go exit, and we are done with that. Alright, so now that we have all of these textures, these are of course your the PNGs are going to be different from yours, but once you have these, of course if you wish to have these, you don't have to, but it could be kind of interesting. Once you have the mat files, basically you can go and place them in the level, and so basically I'm going to open the level editor right here. You should be able to know where to find that. I'm going to open the level 10.map, which I have, which this is what I used in the example, and basically it's just this room. Right now it's stripped of all the things that makes it unique, so right now it's basically just a map. It's like any other map with a lot of entities in it. It doesn't have anything in it yet that defines any of the events that's going to happen, so we're going to add those one by one, and also we're going to have to script it up, of course, but first of all let's place what we need to have in the level. So what do you want to actually display this little cinematic intro? You want to place it somewhere outside of the map. So let me see here. If you go to the primitives and materials, just select any plane. This is just so that you can stand on it, because just to explain how it worked, the intro, it was basically just a player looking at a plane while standing on another plane. It was basically just looking at a plane and being teleported around as it faded in and out. So we're gonna have to first start by making the plane that you stand on. So I like to use the empty plane, basically. If you go to static objects and you go to technical and plane black, you should find this one. It's an 8x8 pixel texture, as I said, cubic, 8x8 pixels. It's basically just a black texture. Click OK, and this is just to have a material, and I'm going to make a plane that is like this, and this is outside of the map. So basically let's align it up there, just because I am very picky and I have OCD on these things. It must align perfectly, and it must be 4 units. Not that it matters actually, but I'm really picky with such. Anyways, just make a plane like this little strip right here, and basically this is where you're going to be teleported. So we're going to need the spawn points that you're going to spawn at. So go on area and select player start, and I'm gonna click in the very corner of this, actually in the middle of the corner. It's going to create this little spawn point, and you want this to face away from the map. You don't want to see the map from the outside, that looks ugly in the game, but you want to place it so that the blue arrow is facing the way you want to look, and basically that'll make you spawn and looking in this direction. Then we'll just hang the plane right here with everything on it, and I'm gonna click it and I'm gonna rename it to intro_0, and this is actually pretty important. I'll get to this later, but this is basically for the scripting. _0, the first one, of course you can do it differently, but I really recommend, if you're going to use this method, I really recommend you name the first one the same as everything else, except it has 0 at the end. So if you do _0 and then you do Control D to duplicate it, the next one will be _1 by default, and that's what you want. And this is going to be the other one, so place it in the middle and duplicate it once again. The name changes to _2 and place it all the way over there. So basically this is _0, _1 and _2. So this is the first one, second and third. And the reason why I want to use 0 instead of 1 is because I'm going to merge the code, so its code is going to be very compact, and I'm going to use a single variable for 2 different things, and it includes the name of the area you want to teleport to, so therefore. But anyways, just name it that, and we're gonna get back to that later. First of all, let's just place, next let's just place whatever we need to have here. So go back to primitives. You can use a billboard actually instead, but I found it much easier to use a plane and then a billboard, because billboards you gotta do quite a few settings to make it actually display, but they will look the same if you use a billboard, but I prefer using a plane. So I'm gonna go back to Amnesia, Cousin Stories, and Textures. This is the same folder that I had open earlier, intro, and here are the mat files, so the .mat that you created of the PNGs. And these previews aren't exactly accurate, but basically these ones are accurate. This one is stretched for whatever reason, but that's not exactly how it looks. But even if it is, you can resize that. So just select the mat file for whatever you want and click OK, and just drag something, and this is how it looks. It looks pretty bad actually. So select it. First of all, we want to rotate it vertically and move it up, because this is what you're actually going to look at. So let's say the camera when you spawn is going to be like here. This is what you're looking at, so this is going to be the first one. If it looks like this, it has a lot of small ones, which it probably does. You can go on plane, the tab over here, and tile amount. You can reduce that. So if you reduce that, it'll be stretched, and I really recommend keeping this one and this one the same amount, like this, or even more, like 0.3. It'll look like this, and that actually looks pretty good. And then you can use the offsets under here to resize it in what direction you want it to be located, the origin that is. So let's say we want the origin to be like there. Yeah, let's put it there, and then I'm just going to resize the rest of the plane so that it looks just like this. It just cuts off. So basically it has a lot of these under it, but we're only going to be able to see one of them. And once you have it looking like this, well, that's actually pretty good, because that's what we want. So try to locate it about in the middle of this camera view perspective. So let's say, I think this is the middle, and I'm just going to move it a little down, a little closer. Oh, that was not closer. let's say, yeah, it's a little close maybe. Something like that. Of course you can experiment with this later. This is now what you're going to see when you start the game. And as you saw in my example, that's what it looked like. And you probably already understand where I'm going with this. Where I'm going with this. Oh god damn it, I can't even talk. So yeah, that's basically it. And now let's just do the other ones. Control D, drag it over here, place it in about the middle, and then you can go back to primitive, the tab, and change the file you want to display. And if all of them are the same resolution and location on the file, then they should look the same. If not, you can go back to plane and resize the offset and tile amount, but try to keep them mostly the same. And there we go. I'm gonna duplicate this one again and just place it in the middle of this view perspective, so about there. There we go. And then I'm gonna go to primitive, select number 3, and that's how it looks. So now, as you see, this is the scene, and yeah, you probably know how this works now. Basically, you fade in, you look there, it fades out, you teleport there, fades in, fades out, teleport there, fades in, fades out, and then you teleport to the actual game. And yeah, that's actually a pretty genius way to do it. Just make sure it's somewhat away from your actual level. You don't want to have it directly here because, well, if you have sound effects like this bonfire or fireplace, whatever, you will be able to hear it. So depending on how close you are, you probably want to have this away so that it's actually quiet or you don't hear the actual game. But anyways, this is what we do to make it. And now the intro level editor wise is basically done. Last thing, we want the actual spawn point that you're spawning in. So just make another spawn point. I'm gonna place it right here next to the bed or wherever you want to spawn in your map. Just gonna rotate it a little bit like this. I'm just gonna place it right there, and I'm gonna name it spawn. Let's just call it spawn just to keep it a little simple. And basically that's it for the intro. Let's come back to this when we're doing the outro later, but that's it for the intro in the level. So save the map and let's go over to scripting. Alright, so let's go over to the scripting now, and basically just go into your maps folder, and right next to your level, if you don't have it already, you can make it. It's basically, this is a script file, and it's basically just a text file with the same name as the level with .hps as the extension. So that's basically what it is. And just make that file, or if you already have it, just open it. And let's put it on the side here, and basically let's just type in the first thing, which this is a very basic function that you probably already have, and if not, you should know what this is. It's void on start, and with parentheses and brackets, and this one is executed every time you start this map for the first time. So this is where we're gonna place some of the code, and then we're gonna make a function for actually teleporting around, and then we're gonna make a function later for the actual ending, but that's slightly different. But anyways, we're just gonna make two functions, and this is the first function where we're gonna start off by just defining everything. Then we're gonna make the teleporting thing, and that's all for the intro. It's not that much, but it's kind of advanced. So just if I actually open up the file where I have all of the script for this is all the script that we're going to use, and this is basically how it looks. And it has a lot of effects up here in the beginning, and then it has a lot of if statements right here, like if, else, if. So I'm gonna explain that the best way I can, how that actually works if you're not too familiar with if statements. But if you know them, they are really useful in every situation basically. So I really encourage you to try to follow along and learn this if you don't already know it. But anyways, first of all, as it says here, yeah, let's just actually go up here and let's just type down everything that we want to start off with. First of all, you can open up your browser actually, and you can find this page, which is for, this is the engine scripts, and all of the functions that I'm going to type down, they're all found on this page. So if you don't know these functions, you can come here and you can Command F or Control F. You can just search up, for example, this fade out, and you can just copy that line, everything except the void part. You don't want to have void within a void. Just copy everything except the void. Copy that, paste it into your script file, and then you can edit the parameters within the parentheses. It basically says under here what it's supposed to be. In this case, fade out, and then there's one parameter, and that's just a number, which is how fast it's going to fade out, basically time in seconds. And yeah, so if there are any functions that I'm going to use that you are not too familiar with, you can just look them up here and you will get all the information that you want from them. But a lot of these functions are quite simple and I remember them, so I'm probably just going to type them, but some of them I might refer to this because if they're longer, then I'm probably just going to refer to them in here. But anyways, just letting you know that. If you don't already know that, but you should know that anyways. Alright, so let's go up here and type first thing you want, fade out 0 seconds. And what this does is that it just starts the screen completely black, and that's because, yeah, we want it to fade in, and to fade in it has to be already faded out. So just fade out 0 and that'll make the screen initially black. Another function that we want, set player active parameters, and inside here we want to type false, and basically you can also find this on the page that I mentioned, and basically this will set the player inactive because it's false, and you will not be able to, no matter what you do with keyboard or mouse, you will not be able to actually control the player. And that's good because this is a cinematic trailer and you're not actually playing, you're just waiting for the intro or whatever, and therefore you don't want to be able to run around when you're actually looking at these things, because that would be weird and would kind of ruin the effect. So put player active false. And the next one, this is just a slight detail. First of all, set sanity drain disabled, and you wanted to put this to true because it's going to disable the sanity drain, because or else you'll be standing there in the darkness and you'll be hearing your teeth shattering and the screen will go all fuzzy, and you don't want that to happen. No. So this will disable that effect. And next one, we want show player crosshair. Crosshair is the icon, or basically everything. Oh, the H is crosshair icons. And be sure to remember all the capitals. You can also look this up, of course, on the page, copy paste it, whatever. And show player crosshairs icons false. This is just so that the little dot in the middle does not display, and this is a very small detail, but it's always nice to include a lot of small details. And that's it for what we want to start off with. So basically it'll just start off black screen, you won't be able to move, you won't be able to get insane, and you will not see the crosshair. And basically that just disables all of your player abilities, so that you're forced to do what the script is telling you to do. You will not be able to do anything until these are released or set in back in the normal state. So now I'm going to do double space just to separate this with the rest that I'm going to do. Here we're going to add a very important timer. So add timer. If you don't know timers, then just look it up on the page. And timers include 3 parameters. First one is a string, so all the strings have double quotes. I'm going to name this timer fade in, and it's very important that you name it something, so I recommend naming it fade in, because this is going to be how long it's going to be until the time until the story fades in for the first time, but it's also going to be fading in the rest of the times. So after fade in, the name, this is the internal name, by the way. So it's not, well, yeah, it's the name, but it doesn't have anything to do with the game. It's just how the game is actually referencing the timer. The next parameter is the time. You want to put this to something like, let's say 3 seconds, because we don't want it to be too abrupt, too sudden. So let's give them 3 seconds to settle down. And the next one is another string, and this is the function it's going to call. This is not the same as the name. This is the function. And I like to call all my timer functions with timer to begin with. That's just my personal preference. And basically, you can type whatever you want in here. I'm going to type timer intro outro, because I'm going to use the same function for everything, basically. And this is just to make the code a lot more compact. But if you want to, you can separate them into different timer functions. But I'm going to do it this way, and if you understand how this works, then it's going to really benefit you in the future, because it makes things a lot more flexible and a lot easier to work with. And the next line is going to just play the music, basically. So let's just open up that page. So Command F, play music. It's right here. I'm just going to copy that line just to show that this is how you do it. Just copy the line. This one has a lot of parameters, so usually I copy that because I don't always remember them. And then I just paste them in right here, and it basically has the name of the function, the parameters. They start off as string and, for example, as music file. And basically, if it says string to begin with, that means it's a string. You put double quotes. If it's a bool, that means it's a boolean, so you put either true or false. Float and int are both numbers. So the first one, string as music file. This is the music file that's going to be. This is just a background music, and this is, you don't need to have this, but music is always nice to have. And I have downloaded a music track by CMA, and I'm going to use that in this example. And that track is called In Motion, and just write inmotion.ogg. And you need that file in OGG format. If you don't have an OGG format, you can always use the converter in my description to convert it to OGG. I'm gonna leave it to you to actually get a music file, because that's not really my business anyways. Next one is a boolean, true or false. This is whether it loops. Since this is a very long track, I'm gonna put it to false, but usually you want background music to loop. But this first one, it doesn't really matter. And the volume, I'm going to put it to 1, just initial volume. The fade time, I'm going to put to 0, because it's not going to fade in, because the music file itself already fades in. And priority, I'm going to put the priority to 1. The priority doesn't matter as long as you only play one track in the story, in the room, in this map, basically. But if you're going to play several, which I'm kind of going to do, I'm going to play the same file, but I'm going to use the same function differently later on. You're going to change the priority there, but we'll get more into that later. And bool resume. This is basically if it stopped, it will replay from where it was stopped instead of restarting. Doesn't really matter, because this one isn't going to be stopped, but I'm just going to put it to true anyways. And that's just the music, so it's not important. It's basically just do whatever if you want to. But now, timer, this is the very important part. Actually, let's put that up because they're not related. The timer is the most important part here, because this is actually the most advanced part as well. So hopefully you can follow along and understand how this works. First of all, always when you make a new function, you want to type void. And I always mistype that. No. Void, and then the name of the timer. This is the function. Since you're making a new function, you want to put void, and you want to put the same name as the function you defined in the add timer line, whatever. So timer intro outro. That's what I named it. The parameters that you want in these parentheses for a timer are string and in as timer. You can look these up on the page. If there at any time when you're making a function, you need to have the parameters to match what kind of function it is. If it doesn't match, it won't work. And if you're not sure what kind of parameters there are, look it up on the ng-scripts page, and it will say syntax callback just below in bold, and you can just copy paste it from there. Now you open the block, and this is where everything happens. This is the magic. So basically, it's going to be kind of tricky for me to explain this because it's very tied well together. So you got to go back and forth to kind of understand how this works. Yeah. But let's say, first of all, you want to put an if statement. If, parentheses. Inside the parentheses is going to be the question. So this is what the engine is going to ask. And if as timer, make sure that this matches this. And this will basically ask if the name of the timer is this, whatever you want to define. If this is going to check for the name of the timer. And that name of the timer is basically this. And in this case, fade in. I'm going to put equal signs, double equal signs actually. And then a string, fade in. And if this matches this, then it's basically the same as if this wasn't here. But since I'm going to use the same function for fading out and fading in, you want to separate them like this. After that, you can put open bracket and close bracket. And inside there, this is where everything is going to happen when you fade in. So first of all, we want, of course, the fade in effect. Fade in. And the parameter is only a second. 1. So it'll fade in from black to fully faded in within 1 second, which is a good tempo, I think. This is not the only thing that this function is going to do as well, though. It's also, whenever you fade in, it's also going to fade back out after you have looked at the image. So we want to add timer, and this timer is going to determine how long you're going to look at this image. So the first one, again, the first parameter is the name of the timer. You want the name of the timer to be fade out, and that will execute another function that's going to be basically the same, except it's going to be fade out and it's going to do different things, but it's going to be within the same name. And let's say you want to look at this for 4 seconds, and the function is going to call is the same that the one it always is. I'm going to use the same function for everything. So timer, intro, outro. As long as this name matches this name and everything, then it's basically going to call this event again, but it's not going to call this part of the event because the name of as timer is not fade in, it's fade out. And yeah. But also, as it is fading in, you're going to be teleported. So let's add the teleport a little later. Let's add the fading out. So below it, outside of the if statement, write another if, parentheses. Basically the same. You could just copy it and paste it actually. If as timer, this time if it equals to fade out, which is the other type of timer that I'm going to use. And I totally mistyped right there, typoed. Anyways, if as timer equals fade out, which is this name, as soon as this timer is called, it's going to call the same function again, as I said, but this time it's going to call this block instead of this block. So because the name of the timer is fade out, and if they match, then it's going to call the whatever is inside here. And it's just what it says in the name. It's going to fade out within 1 second. And this is basically just the same because it fades in, it fades out. Alright, that's pretty easy to understand. And this is just how it fades in and out. And then you also want to add another timer. Add timer. And this is going to be the timer for fading back in. So fade in. As long as make sure that this name is the same as the name up here and also here, because or else it won't recognize it. And the timer is going to be 1 second, because as soon as it fades out, you're not going to have the screen black for many seconds. Just basically, if this is the same number in fade out and timer, it means it's going to execute this timer as soon as the screen has actually reached black. So it's going to instantly fade back in as soon as it's done fading out, which is good. And the last one is the timer, so just timer, intro, outro, because we have everything in here. And there you go. So that basically, if you were to run it right now, it's going to basically add a timer to begin with. After 3 seconds, it's going to fade in, and then after 4 seconds, it's going to fade out, and then after 1 second, it's going to fade in, and then it's going to fade out, and it's going to fade in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in a forever loop, because these call each other every time. We're gonna have to limit that, because we don't want it to fade in and out all the time, forever or never. We only want it to fade in for as many intro images that you have, and therefore we're going to have to use a variable to limit that. Alright, so within this fading out function right here, next to here, we're going to add a variable, and basically if you add something to a variable without defining it to begin with, it will automatically be defined as 0, so you don't need to worry about it. You don't need to set it to 0 to begin with. You can just add to a random number and it will make a variable into that. So basically we want add local var int, and that's add a local variable of an integer data type, and just don't mind the int part. You can use int or float, but just use an int because ints are more common to use for these things. And inside here you want 2 parameters, the name of the variable and the value of the variable. So I'm going to call it intro, and that's the name of the variable, and that's just for referencing. And it's going to add 1. So basically this line, every time this timer is ran, it's going to take this intro and it's going to add another value to it. So basically it's like, let's say this intro is a button, and this is how many times you click the button. So when you call fade out, it's going to click the button once, and then the button has been clicked once, and then it calls fade in, and then it calls fade out again, and it's going to click the button again, and therefore you have now clicked the button twice in total. And then it's going to be clicked for the 3rd time, and basically then we're going to add a check, because as soon as it's done when it's the 3rd time, it's basically it's not going to do this again. So basically we're going to put all of this inside another if statement, because we want that to be checked first. So before the first if statement, type another if parentheses get local var int. This is basically the same as add local var int, except it will get the result of it. So basically this will be different every time this function is ran, depending on how many times this has been executed. So every time this is executed, it's added another value, and every time this is executed, the result of this value will be different. So as I used before here, I used the double equal sign. This basically compares this, if this is the exact same as this on both sides, because it is, as timer is just an alias for the name of the timer, which is this. And you can use other things than double equal signs. And if you're good with, if you text a lot, you might use these kind of things as for a heart, this symbol, the triangle, and the 3 number for a heart. And basically this is the way you can memorize how this works, because if you type this, let's put a space in between though, and also actually we need some parameters inside here. Of course we need to define which variable we were going to get, so type that in there. But basically this in code means less than 3. So just remember, the heart is less than 3. Less than 3. So basically, if this variable is less than 3, then you're going to execute, then you're going to give these checks. First it's going to check this, and if this is less than 3, it's going to check this. And if this timer is the same as this, it's going to execute this. So by the way to do that, just don't forget to put the block out here and at the end of the whole thing here. And because these are now pushed one block further in, I'm going to tab them all up like this to keep things more organized. And basically that's how it works, and I'm going to put a space between there. And now we have these if statements within this whole statement, within the whole function. when the function is called, it's first going to check this one, and if this one matches, or if this one passes the test, it's going to test this. So basically, if this is less than 3, then it's going to check this, and then it's going to run this, and it's going to add 1. So as soon as, basically this means that the third time that this fade out function has been called, it means, oh, it's no longer less than 3, it's 3, because 3 is not less than 3. If you put less equals 3, that means less and or equals 2. So basically, if you put an equal sign there as well, then it's going to do 2 mathematical expressions, whatever, right there. Basically, calculations saying that if it is less, but also if it is equals to. So basically, you count inclusive 3. But if you put only this, it's going to be exclusive 3. So it's going to be, as long as this value intro is anything below 3, by default it's 0. Every time this is ran, it's 1. It's going to, yeah, it's going to do the rest. Maybe I'm taking this way too far now, but let's just say it's only going to do this 3 times. After the third time, this is 3, so therefore it does not pass this test, and it will ignore everything inside. I guess that's a lot shorter to say, but anyways. Alright, so there we have it. Now we're still missing the teleporting. And basically, if you run it right now, it's going to fade in. Well, it starts as black, fades in, fades out, fades in, fades out, fades in, fades out, and it's going to be faded out because we're going to add the fade in for the actual game elsewhere, but it's not going to fade in and out more than 3 times. But you're still in the same spawn point, you're not teleported. We want the player to be teleported on fade in, because when fade in starts, it's already black, and we want to teleport the player when the screen is black, the moment the screen is black. So when it starts fading in, that's when the screen is black. When it starts fading out, it's already bright, so it's going to take a second until it's black. So this is why we put it on fade in. And this is where we put teleport player, this function. And basically it only has one parameter, which is the spawn point. And if you open up the level, we want the player to be teleported to the second one. However, first of all, we want the player to teleport to a different one each time. So therefore we're going to use the same intro variable in here. And this is slightly coincidental, if that's even a word, anyway. However, that this intro variable is going to be the same as the extension of it, and this is why this one is _0, this one is _1, this one's _2. When the game starts, the value intro is 0, therefore it teleports it to 0. After it's faded out and in, it's going to add 1 to intro, and therefore it's no longer 1, and therefore it's going to teleport to intro _1, and then it's going to _2, and then the value will reach 3 and will no longer teleport you because it doesn't pass the test. So basically we're going to put what the name of these 3 areas have in common, which is intro _, everything except the last number. So put string intro _, and at the end of that, outside the string, you're going to put a plus operator, and this is going to add to the string. So basically it changes depending on what the value is. Put the same as this one, get local var int intro. Paste that in right there, and basically it's going to teleport you to the name, which is if this one has not been ran yet, that means intro, the value is 0, and it's going to teleport you to intro _0, which is the first one. And then it's going to run this one, and it's going to add a value, and the next time this is ran, this one equals to 1 basically, and it's going to add 1 to the string, and therefore it's going to teleport you to the area called intro _1. Hopefully you understand this. This is quite advanced, but I hope you understand this. It's easy to fall off, and if you fall off, just take a 10-minute break or something, get some air, come back. That stuff could be pretty tough. And yeah, basically this is all we need in this function. So now we have everything that teleports you back and forth. And after the third time, that's when it's going to teleport you to the actual game. So put it outside the whole block, the whole if statement, initial if statement, outside, still within the same timer. However, it's outside the first test. So type else, and this is basically it's going to execute whatever is inside the else block if the question does not pass on the previous if statement. So if this passes, it's going to run this. If this fails to pass, which it will after 3 fadings, it's going to run this instead. So that's just else is just a shortcut for, instead of typing if get local var int is 3 or more, it's just else, because yeah. So inside else, this is where we're going to teleport you to the actual game. Teleport player. Remember, we named the spawn point just spawn, so just type spawn or whatever you want named it. This spawn point that is inside the actual level, right here, spawn, and just teleport him to the spawn. The next thing we want to do, actually, well, it doesn't matter what order you do this in, but of course we want the screen to fade back in, and the number, you can put it to like 2 seconds, so it's fading in slowly. And of course, if it's not if you don't fade it in, it's going to be just a black screen, you won't be able to see anything. Next thing we want to do, basically what we're doing now is just re-enabling the things that we disabled up top. So we want to set player active to true, so that you are able to control the player again and walk around. Next off, we want to just enable these things that we have out here. For example, set sanity drain disabled. We want to enable that again by putting this to false instead, because you likely want that effect. And show player crosshair icons. Copy that, paste it in here, and put it to true instead of false. And that will enable the crosshair again. And now we have the effects set back. And this is another small thing. If you want the music if you want the music to change, copy the music line and paste it in here. If you want the music to change, you change the sound file. But if you want the music to fade to a lower volume, you can use the same sound file and it will resume from where it currently is. But you have to put the volume, which is this one, to something less. So I'm going to put 0.2, which is very low volume, but it will be like a background theme. Of course, this is preferences, whatever. But make sure that the priority, which is this one, is above the previous one, because only one music track is played at the same time, and only the one with the highest priority. So basically, if this one is not any higher than the previous one, it will just ignore it. So make sure this is higher than 1, or whatever you put up here. And yeah, we have that now then. And right now we are done with the whole intro. So let's save the file and save. Oh, that's where I was. I accidentally did something there. Alright, save the file, and now we can run up Amnesia and see how it looks. Start game. I'm just going to be directly put into here. Tutorial. Start. This is how it looks. Apparently the picture is a bit low. We can change that. I am going to change that. And then it fades in right here. Oh, one thing. Let's just pause the game here and go back to the script. in this play music thing, if you wanted to fade from being high volume to low volume, put this fade time to like 1, and it won't just suddenly go from so it won't just suddenly change volume, it will fade to a lower volume, which is more smooth. And also let's go back to the level editor and change these to be higher up like that. Save the map, save the script, and I'm going to back to game. Since I have the development environment, I can just reload map. And this is how it looks. And as I could hear, I noticed in the beginning I could hear the fireplace. That means I actually spawned in the level to begin with, before I spawned in this intro scene. There we go. It fades down to the lower volume. It means I spawned here when the screen was black, and we don't want that, because then you will hear the sound effects from around here. So let's start by just if you don't bother to, you can put the spawn point of what spawn point you will spawn in to begin with when you first launch this map, but if you're lazy, just put teleport player at the beginning. Just put teleport player at the beginning and teleport him to like intro_0, just to get him away from the actual map. And yeah, so basically now reloading. Oh, it didn't actually teleport me, but either way, you can define that later. And here you can see, you can click, nothing will happen, you will not be able to move, you'll see these things. That's your intro right there. Fades into the game. You're able to move around as much as you wish. And there you go, there's your intro. Now let's go over to the outro. Alright, so let's go ahead and do the outro. It's a lot faster, so don't worry. I know the video's really long by now, but let's just hope that I explained something well. Anyways, let's just go to entities and find the door. This is of course how you want the credits to be executed. Is different probably from everyone. If you wanted to be like you walk through a door, like the last door of the game or whatever, then you can just put the door like that, and you can do it like I am going to do. I'm going to put a door in each. However, if you wanted to execute some other way, you can always do that, just placing like an area like with collision on it, so that you can just execute the credits when you collide with the area. But let's just do it this way. When you walk out of the door, you're ending the game. And this one was a little tricky to get working, but I found a way that works. Right, so I have two doors basically. This door will not give you the credits and this door will. So let's say this goes back to a previous level or where you came from or whatever, if you can go back, but you will only end the game when you go through the last door. So basically, the one thing you want to make sure, all the doors must have a map file loaded. So click on the map file and just select the same map that you're currently using. So custom story, maps, level 10, this is the same as this map. So basically when you go through this door, it will only teleport you to like this spawn point or whatever. But it's instead of you noticing that you're teleporting to that point, you're just going to execute the credits, so you won't really notice. But as for this door, you don't really need to do anything with it. Just you keep it as a normal door. This is the only door that's going to do anything, so I'm not going to bother defining that door. Basically, go on player interact callback. This one is what is actually going to execute the credits, so call it like exit. Press enter and save the map, and that's all you need to do. Just make sure that you actually have a player interaction callback. And when you click on this door, you're interacting with it, but the game freezes because it's fading out and you're loading the next map. If you're loading the same map, there will not be a loading screen, and basically all the timers will freeze during this exiting scene. So therefore we're going to have a really quick timer that reacts instantly when you actually spawn, so fast that you won't be able to see that you spawn. because if you give the credits as soon as you click here, it's going to be like you click and boom, there's the credits. But if you want it to fade out to credits, you want to let the door load the file or the map before you execute the credits. So basically, let's go and make that little void thing right here, void exit, which is the same I put over there. The parameters for interacting is just string and in as entity, and that's all you gotta put. If you don't know, you can always go here and look, and if you hover over it, it'll say syntax void func string in entity. And inside here, you're going to put the credits. No, actually, you're going to put add timer. And since I'm going to use the intro outro timer for this, you don't need to, of course, but I'm going to do that just to keep things a little more compact. And basically, I'm going to call this outro. Outro. There you go. That's the name of it, and the time is going to be 0.01. So it's just lightning fast. It's so fast you won't notice it, but it's there. And it'll be executed as soon as you're done loading. And put double quotes, timer, intro, outro. And basically that'll launch the if as timer equals outro, which I'm going to put below everything. So at the very bottom, it's not going to be part of the intro, so it's going to be outside the whole test and check and else and whatnot. So just put if as timer equals quote quote outro, and like that. Open the bracket, close the bracket. Inside here, we're going to execute the credits. So you can go on the NGScripts page again. If you just search up start credits, you'll find this function called start credits with all of these parameters. Paste that one in there. And this is the last part of the whole tutorial, so at last. Right, the first one for the start credits, you can have the background music. So I'm just going to do in motion on that one as well, in motion.ogg. And whether you want it to loop or not, I'm just going to put false because the file is much longer than the credits. And then there are these two. Just put string quotes on both of these. We're going to define them. The last one is basically just the code. Just put 3, and basically don't even bother to know what this is. This is just the little code that is for Amnesia's actual ending, but you don't want that in your thing, so just put 3. And these two are going to be the category and the entry in your extraenglish.lang, and we haven't used that yet. So let's go over there. Back to the main story. Open up extraenglish.lang, and let's say I have actually this category down here, but let's say I didn't have this. Let's say it's not there. So basically, if you don't have a category yet, just make a category. And by doing that, you just copy a diamond bracket opening category name equals for anything. Just copy that, paste it somewhere, and that is not within another category already. So let's put it here, and let's just push that further down, and let's ignore that it's even there. And then you need a slash category below it, so like that. And whatever is inside here, let's put this to credits, something like that. And whatever is inside here is going to be the actual what is it displayed during the credits. So you need an entry name equals quote quote ending block, and then slash entry, and like that. So in the quotes you write let's call ending, and in between the blocks you write what is going to actually appear as the credits. So call it like credits, and then you can do square brackets and BR inside, and that will break the line pretty much as if you type enter. So just do that a few times if you wish to make some space under credits, and then you can have like made by my bum, etc, etc. So let's just save that. And in the actual script you gotta put the category name and the entry name. So I have credits and ending. and just go back to the script file, and inside of this one where it says start credits, the first one is category, so that one is credits. Make sure it matches exactly, and this one is ending. So if this one matches and this one matches, and you saved the extra English, which I don't think I did, no, now I saved it, then it should be able to appear in the game. So let's try that out right now. Start up the game. Launch. Already in the game. Start. We'll get the intro as always. If you're wondering about the clover, I just wanted an icon. I just found something on Google. Because, yeah, maybe you have an icon or something for it. Anyways, that's the intro. Now we're playing the game, and you want to end the game once you've gone through your custom story or whatever. You'll be going through here. It'll execute the timer instantly because it's so fast it won't even react. And here is, well, here are the credits made by my bum. You can type whatever credits you wanted there. BR will break the line, etc. And that is everything for this tutorial, I think. The end. So yeah, just gonna quit the game there, and yeah. If you found this video helpful in any way or whatever, I would really appreciate if you would like the video. This one in particular, it took me quite a while to make, as you already see. It's well over an hour long. It was quite tricky to make, and I really hope you found it helpful, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask me and I will help you in every way that I can possibly find. So yeah, and also thanks to CMA for the music. He's great at, really great at this chill step stuff. And also, yeah, I suppose this will just be my 100 subscriber special whatever, after I just got 100 before this video. Alright, well, anyways, I will thank you for watching, and I will see you later.